Hello, everybody. Mr. Butorac here with another edition of Butorac's Books. This is a review. This is a book review of something a little different. A book that I bought myself for Christmas, which I have on my ancient Kindle here, which still works awesome. Great product. This is a book called 40 Years with a Whistle by Dan John. This is not a sort of typical literary fiction English teacher book review. This one's a little different. It's somewhat difficult to explain what this book is. First, we have to start by explaining who is Dan John, and that's difficult to do also because there's not really sort of common narrative, well-known narrative for this type of person. So, who is Dan John? Well, most people who know him would know him as legendary strength coach Dan John. But there's a lot more to him, and I think it's important just to unpack that for a second. After reading this book, this is what I gather. Dan John, he's a 60-something-year-old man. He was an elite high school track athlete who became a Division I discus thrower, who became a Division I strength coach, who became a Catholic school history teacher and football coach, who eventually became an author, writer, blogger, podcaster, etc., etc. And he's known best, I think, for writing for sort of meathead publications like Men's Health, T Nation. But there's a lot more to him than that. He's someone who's really built himself up organically to success from the ground up, from taking what he loved and what he was good at and doing it. And just doing it. Coaching, teaching, exercising, all these things. Like I said, he's 60 years old. I think earlier this year, or just the end of last year, he competed in a Olympic lifting meet. He's the one who invented the 10,000 swing challenge, which he just did live on Instagram. I listen to his podcast a lot. It's a great podcast where he just talks about exercise. I listen to his podcast that he does with Pat Flynn, where they have great conversations about all sorts of things, mainly exercise. But really, Dan John seems like the type of guy that is never going to be famous, but is going to be well loved and respected because of how he created himself as an athlete, as a competitor, as a coach. Oh, now I think he's a religious studies teacher for not NYU, but some online New York thing. I don't know. So this book, 40 Years with a Whistle, this is him talking about. It's his memoir, I guess he calls it. It's his memoir where he talks about his journey from high school athlete. I think it actually starts way back in like elementary Catholic school. Like the first chapter is about a lesson that he learned from his kindergarten teacher who was a nun. And then he goes on through his mentors, his experiences, his competitions, his coaches. And it's a sort of mixture between his memoir about, all of his mentors and all the people he learned from, his knowledge about exercise and life in general, but mostly about exercise. It's really those two things. And it's such a great read. It's such a great read because it's very unique. It's easy to read. It's simple. It's straightforward. It's humble. It's earthy. It's all of these things. And I have some quotes. I got to navigate this ancient Kindle, so bear with me for a second. But I want to read you some of the quotes because I think that's really going to be the best way to get this across. So I highlighted a lot of the quotes from this novel So here's an example of one thing that he says. He's talking about assessment. He's talking about how you assess your progress as an athlete mainly, but he talks about life in general. He says, true assessment is not standing behind Macbeth and whispering suggestions and better ideas. Lady Macbeth's great line, that I may pour my spirits in thine ear, makes marvelous stagecraft, but it's a poor role model for an assistant coach. That's the type of thing. Now, okay, those of you that know me, my ducklings especially, you're going to be rolling your eyes and laughing, and you're going to get why I like this book so much. But it's true. He's talking about how do you assess your athletes as a coach. Well, you can't just tell them what to do. That's kind of what he says there. Some other great lines. I'm just going to do the first few words from this one. My dog, Sirius Black. So he named his dog Sirius Black. Ignore perfect. Make yourself a slave to good habits. This is really a bit of wisdom that he gives in this book that is I think incredibly profound, especially for someone with a busy life. So this is one of my favorite things that he says. He says, make yourself a slave to good habits. And then he gives examples of like how he picks out his clothes every day and how he makes his coffee the night before and how he makes soups for the week, like how he does meal preps, things like that. But then he says, little and often over the long haul. And that may be my favorite thing about this whole book. And it's something that I try to say in my head over and over and over every day because it's so antithetical to modern fitness industry, torch calories, get in shape, et cetera, but also in life in general, this idea that strive to make these little upgrades often over the long haul, and you will reap those benefits so much more. And his own life is a testament to that. So little and often over the long haul is one of the biggest things that I certainly take from this book. One lesson that resonates over my lifetime in athletics and academics is this. Pretty good is pretty good. Keep looking for better. Keep upgrading. And if you couple that with little and often over the long haul, you sort of end up with this recipe for success. It's not complicated. It's not overly intimidating. It's take your time to grow personally, little and often over the long haul. And if you follow that philosophy over the course of your life, you will most likely find success. And, if I use him as a sort of model for success, I think that means that you will live a good life, a life where your hard work is balanced with fun, with competition, with growth. Here he says, surprise, surprise, why I highlighted this. The three witches in Macbeth said it best about the kids in my neighborhood discussing judgment calls in foggy South San Francisco. Fair is foul and foul is fair. Hover through the fog and filthy air. I'm just highlighting the Macbeth quotes, obviously, but he's talking about growing up and playing sports in the neighborhood, and what that taught him. Okay, let's see if there's any other. There's a ton of really good ones that I have highlighted here, but I don't know. Good people can do dumb things. Memorize this. I highlighted make yourself a slave to good habits over and over. Here's a good one. This one really was great. He talks about his teaching career, and he talks about, I think the dean of discipline told him on his first day. He says, Dan, this is what one of his mentors said to him. Dan, You're going to have some kids with some pretty lousy lives. Their parents are flakes. These kids have been lied to and promised things their whole life that never came true. They get shuttled from mom to dad and back again. Adults in these kids' experiences are flakes. Sitting next to them is a kid whose dad is a lawyer and whose mom is a doctor. They fly to Europe on a whim, and the kid has every advantage. For this kid, you can sit in your chair and ask, what do I feel like learning today? You can swing it. You can play records in class and have free time. This kid will still get into college, grad school, and will do just fine. But those other kids, they need an adult in their lives. They need you to be organized, balanced, and sane. You need to have a routine, a schedule, and consequences, good and bad. You need to point the way. Then Dan goes on to say, it was and remains the most important thing I have ever heard about the gift of teaching. I'm not here to entertain. I'm here to teach, to lead, to educate. There's a lot more, but we're coming up on past 10 minutes, so I'm going to get going soon. This book is full of wisdom that is authentic. It's built from experience. It's humble. It's not trendy. It comes from a good place. And so, to conclude, who should read this? Obviously, coaches, I think. Makes me miss coaching. Obviously, teachers. As a teacher myself, who's had that very exact experience that I just read, this was hugely moving for me. Parents, I think, should read it. And then finally, I don't think this is a book that's written for young people. This is a book who's written, I think, for people like me. I'm 40, I teach, I coach, I have kids. This book tailor-made for me. He quotes Macbeth and Harry Potter all the time. I mean, come on, my ducklings know, right? But I would love to see young people reading a book like this. To hear the knowledge gained from experience distilled to simplicity with the skill of a teacher is something that I think is so valuable and so rare and so wonderful. And so I think everyone should read it. I think that teachers, coaches, and parents, definitely this is a must read. And I think that young people should read it. I would love to hear from any of my ducklings who saw this review and decided to read this book, especially people who are not into sports and not into athletics, to hear this perspective with all the flash taken out of it, all the trendiness, all the testosterone, all the ego, all that just removed, and this sort of perspective of this wonderful, successful man who's achieved so much through, I think I would say, in the right way. I think that would be a profound experience for a young person to read. So if you do read it, let me know. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope I was able to convey what this book is really about. And one last thing I want to say, I know that Dan John interacts with his fans a lot. So Dan or Mr. John, or however I'm supposed to address you, if you see this review and you have a comment for it, or if you ever wanted to if you ever wanted to have a conversation or whatever, feel free to email me or message me anytime. Thank you. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Hope you enjoyed the review.